The new WX is a complete overhaul of the old, and Clay cooked with this update. I want to talk about it because this update is just so sick, so let's start with the circuit changes. The rusty old WX could only hold 6 slots for circuits. There were interesting decisions to make, like whether you wanted night vision or speed, health over speed, sanity over speed. Basically, you just chose whether you wanted to be the fastest character or literally anything else. But now the new and improved model of WX can hold 21 circuit slots instead of 6. 21 circuits sounds like a lot, but it's segmented out because of the new circuit board system. Basically, WX has 3 circuit boards, each with 7 circuit slots. Alpha circuit holds your stat buffs, beta circuit holds your speed buffs, and gamma holds the new active use circuits. To balance out these changes, Clay has reduced WX's base stats to 100 across the board, and the effectiveness of some of the circuits has been reduced quite a bit. Still, the build customization on display is far better than the old WX. And the new tinkering skills in the skill tree add extra buffs to your circuits, adding another layer of build customization. There's just way more player expression in the builds that you can create now, and many of the circuits got substantial changes so that they're a lot better than they were before. Like the bean booster circuit, which all it did was passively regenerate your health, and you had to kill Bee Queen to actually unlock it. Now, when you upgrade it with the skill point, it gains a slowly regenerating shield that acts as a mini bone armor. So all in all, pretty strong. The best circuits that came out of this update have got to be the Spatializer circuit, the Spin Cycle circuit, and the Chessmaster circuit. The Spatializer circuit turns WX into literally just the best resource collector in the game. The Spin Cycle circuit helps tremendously in your day-to-day resource collecting, allowing you to harvest your grass quickly without needing to activate cave rifts for the Shadow Mall. And the Chessmaster circuit is just insanely OP. Genuinely, Clay threw balancing completely out the window with this. Remember when they let you tame Clockworks as any character without needing to stun them for like 2 weeks? Yeah, the Chessmaster circuit just adds that back. Clockwork armies are now real again. And clearing the ruins has never been easier. The second part of WX's new skill tree are the new backup chassis. And man, are they cool. I love these so much. Basically, for just a red gem and a gear, WX can craft a backup chassis which he can transfer consciousness to by clicking on it. And then does this like really nice animation that I'm like totally obsessed with. Literally, this animation is so satisfying, bro. I don't know what it is about it. Anyways, the chassis have their own circuit set and their own inventory, allowing you to use them like chests. Really big chests at that. Spending 5 total skill points on them allows you to transfer consciousness from across the map, which allows for some really unique plays, like when I cleared the ruins without ever exiting it by entering into my chassis that was at the cave entrance and allowing it to send items that I delivered to it back to the base. Wanda, Wartox, and Winona can basically do the same thing with their teleports, but it's cool because WX has it, and WX is peak, so I'm not complaining. Something that Wanda, Wartox, and Winona can't do is use their chassis as basically loadouts for their circuits. What I've done in my base is basically have a chassis that easily runs around the base and collects stuff. I don't have to deal with nighttime because I have a night vision circuit in it, and they're just great at collecting stuff, and I never have to take the circuits out of them and lose durability. The chassis also work as basically a life-giving amulet, but I never really had to use that because I'm a rollback scum. Sometimes it's just too convenient to roll back, but I try sometimes to not roll back, and with that, all my credibility as a DST creator has been destroyed. But the coolest part about the chassis is really how they interact with the affinity skills, which I will get to after I talk about the drones. I've only used the delivery drones in my world, but from what I can infer, the other drones are outstanding as well. Starting with the one I'm most familiar with, the drones are super fun to use. Requiring only 2 skill points to max out, you can craft them like mini chests with the benefit that you can stack them in your inventory. And they're very useful, especially when you have a backup chassis across the map that could say collect the items and send them back to you. This is kind of a copy of Walter's Wobie delivery skill, but the difference is that WX has backup chassis, so you don't need another player to collect Wobie's stuff for you, which of course is super useful when you play Don't Starve together by yourself, because you have no friends, which that demographic is basically me. Isn't it nice how WX just solves all of my problems? Yeah, this is why they're the peak character. The second drone is the Roto Mapper. If I were to start a new WX run, I would definitely pick up this skill. The Roto Mapper can be sent out to passively discover parts of the world for you, which is super useful for exploring the mainland and the ocean with ease. A good skill, especially since it only costs 1 skill point. And the last drone is the Zaptrocutor. I think that's how you say it. This one's definitely more niche to say the least. It's almost completely unique to Don't Starve Together, being an aerial device that removes the camera from the player, which we haven't seen before, at least as far as I know. It can remotely zap and damage mobs without drawing aggro to yourself. I can see this being used in farms and in boss cheeses. It's also very fitting that WX has a drone strike ability, considering their very consistent murderous intent towards everything in the constant. And now for the cool stuff, the affinity skills. So far I've only used the shadow affinity skills, but I'll be grabbing footage of the lunar affinity, and if I did, it'll appear right here, yep. Right there. Anyways, the Shadow Affinity will let WX insert dark magic into their chassis. Inserting Nightmare Fuel or Pure Horror gives you access to the auto grabber drones, which are pretty convenient to have around for day-to-day collection, especially in the early game. However, they are super annoying if you use items as decoration in mega bases, so I recommend removing them if you have those. Another thing is that the auto grabbers stay activated when they're in a deactivated backup chassis. So you can leave the backup chassis nearby grass and twigs and they'll automatically be collected, making WX a very effective auto farmer for grass and twigs even in the early game. The Shadow Affinity also lets you insert a Shadow Atrium, which is like a mid-game buff, or a Possessed Shadow Atrium, which is like a super late-game buff. Inserting either of them will give you access to the Exploiter Raiders, which act like the Worbus helmet, increasing your damage against whatever mob it's scanning. The difference is that the Exploiter Raiders buff everyone's damage, meaning they're great in a team setting. The Possessed Shadow Atrium, in addition to giving you the Exploiter Raiders, has the tiny little buff of duplicating items for you. So, when the Possessed Shadow Atrium is inside of a backup chassis, it'll spawn the Mimicries from the late game cave rifts. These little guys will duplicate nearby tools and armor. Normally, the Mimicries would just jump scare you when you try to use the duplicated items, but WX can use the duplicated items so long as their chassis has a Possessed Shadow Atrium inside of it. However, this effect does not apply to deconstruction amulets and staves, because that would mean infinite of everything in the game. Plus, sitting at your base constructing and deconstructing in an endless loop would be really boring, and I don't want to spend my late game doing that. Still, duplicating tools sounds like quite the game changer, though in my opinion it really isn't. Since you have to kill Ancient Fuel Weaver to unlock this ability, and by that point you already have access to crazy good weapons and armor like the Glass Cutter and Bone Armor, it's not really that useful. You could duplicate some more harder to get items like the Bone Armor and then give them to a friend, but this is also super late game. It's not as strong as you think it is. Having another bone armor is another bone armor. Cool, but if you're playing by yourself, you only need one bone armor. The passive nature of the duplication does make it useful, but it's not as useful as it sounds on paper, basically. The duplication also does take a while, but like I said, it is passive. Overall, the Shadow Affinity is pretty good. It's convenient and easy to use, only costing Nightmare Fuel, and its effects are decently substantial. The Lunar Affinity, on the other hand, though, is crazy, let me tell you. So, by crafting a backup chassis on the Lunar Island, you can have a Gestalt jump into the chassis and possess it. Or, if you've progressed the Warbot questline, you can use the Gestalt net thing for on-the-spot ghostly possession. Note that using higher level Gestalts like the Grazers from Lunar Rifts will enhance your servants with, something. With your backup chassis possessed, they'll then follow you around as little servants with their own circuits that were installed in them before possession. They'll attack when you attack, kite when you kite, chop when you chop, mine when you mine, and use active circuits when they're prompted. They'll even use the Zaptrocutor on any enemy that you're attacking, so long as the Zaptrocutor remote is in their inventory. They're really great helpers to have around, but you have to maintain their hunger, sanity, and health because they will die if any of those bars reach 0. So be a good robot overlord. Put food items in their inventory and they'll passively eat them when needed. They're just kind of smart like that. I honestly love the way Clay did their AI. It feels very unique to WX alone. The base premise alone of these servants has endless possibilities for use cases. For example, you can give all of your backup chassis redigestion circuits and make your own bakery that follows you around, eat garbage, and spits out stale bread. Although that's probably not a great use of the lunar affinity, but one that exists, I guess. More usefully, you can install spin cycle circuits and spatializer circuits into your servants to farm heaps and heaps of resources with WX and Friends Lumber Co. Or even more useful, you can assemble a tag team of boss annihilating robots, all with bone armor, fully upgraded shadow mauls, and void cowls, and wow, that's like a lot of setup time, like so many hours of setup time. Speaking of setup time, yeah, despite how OP the lunar affinity seems, it is set back by considerable setup time, considering that you have to place the chassis on the lunar island in order to get them possessed, or you need to be way into the late game. But I think it can be worthwhile in most cases, just because of how useful even one servant can be in your day-to-day. And besides, what's one more WX to feed? Food is really easy to get and don't starve, surprisingly, and the redigestion circuit adds a really good source of additional food for your WX buddies. Overall, I think the lunar affinity is good, really good in some cases, but again, like the Shadow Affinity, it's not overpowered due to its high setup time and maintenance fees. Overall, I think I can say that this is one of the best skill trees we've gotten. It's very comparable to the Wendy, Wartox, and Walter's skill tree in its sheer awesomeness and customization. While I was playing WX, I was constantly switching my build around to facilitate different needs, which in my books means that this is a pretty good skill tree. The skill tree does change the WX meta very considerably as well. Since drones cost an electrical doodad to craft, it means you'll want to dig up graves in the early game to trade with Pig King so that you'll have enough gold to last you. And this is especially apparent if you pick up the Shadow Affinity skills, which each drone will be costing you an electrical doodad and a nightmare fuel, and you generally have nearly 5 to 6 drones at a time. The Lunar Affinity has mid-game and late-game applications, and it's nothing like we've ever seen before. I'm really interested to see early to late game runs utilizing the lunar skill, even though a lot of people are just opting to use the shadow skills instead because of their lower setup time. I'm quite interested in doing a Lardy style video where I try to rush the ancient Fuel Weaver as WX. The only issue is I'm not very good at DST like he is. If I do make a video, it'll probably be called How to be an F tier WX instead of How to be an S tier. With that said, the WX skill tree is really nice. It somewhat marks a change in Clay's balancing perspective, as they're very willing to make characters very strong as they enter into the late game. And if this balancing mindset means giving characters crazy unique abilities like the lunar affinities and the shadow affinities, I'm all for it. I want to be excited for the late game, and so having my character change drastically, like how WX has access to planar servants in the late game and item duplication in the late game, then that's what I want. Not too crazy, not too, yeah, just a little just a little salami. Or alternatively, you can you can do that. Sure thing. Sure, kids.